Let's go. New week, new stuff. We're going to focus on two sports, well, two events. Formula One, again, another all-timer. And the Olympics, obviously. Start of the Olympics. It took a while to get into the running for me. Swimming was good. I think the crowds affected some sports, and depending on what was shown on TV, a lot of it was kind of in the background and show us little highlights now and again. But once the athletics got going and the final started in some of the other sports, things started to kick off. So to wrap up on the swimming, because now that's finished. So I mentioned a few swimmers last week, Milak and Caleb Dressel and Ledecky. So Ledecky managed to get her two. So she got beat in the first two races she did, which was a bit of a surprise. And then she managed to get the two that she was good at initially. She's got the top 20 best times in the 800 metre freestyle. She's got the gold in that, and got the gold in the 1500. So she's 2-2 with Ariana Titmus, which ended up being, well, about average, even though she did get beat in those two. And the 400 was quite not a shock, because she is an 800. She's a long distance swimmer that can kind of come down and do the smaller ones. But 2-2, she'll take. Australians were good all throughout the swimming. I think they were top of the swimming medal table. America second. GB came third. I mean, they won a lot of all these sports. I think they kind of came in under the radar, but they have been building for a little while. I don't know if those two things can both be true, but I mean, a lot of the guys and girls, especially the guys, just start smashing these medals. 200 meter freestyle gold. A lot of the relays they got gold in. PT jumped in and saved Great Britain in a few of those, but Caleb Dressel. So we're talking about Michael Phelps being gone and Usain Bolt being gone and who's going to jump in. Caleb Dressel is that guy, clearly. So he's broken. So the four individual gold medals he got in this Olympics, he broke the Olympic record in the 50 and the 100 freestyle, which is basically the sprints. The fastest swimmers, the big guys who just fly along. The two sprint events, he won gold in both of those, Olympic record in both. The world records of those, like I mentioned before, were back in a different era of swimming, let's say. So 2008, 2009, when things were not quite the same with suits and with performance-enhancing drugs. So now he's the fastest swimmer in the world, the Olympic record holder in both. Then he went and beat Christoph Milak, who was he's the new world record holder on the 200 butterfly, the Michael Phelps event. He beat him, took the world record in that event as well, and then obviously he got two golds in the relay. So he's not only is he the fastest swimmer in the world across the two short sprint distances, he's also the gold medalist and the world record holder of the 100 butterfly. So the diversity is amazing, to be fair, and it's all in his starts. If you ever see his swim, everyone obviously dives in. You can't get a lot off the actual dive into the pool, the entry to the pool, but it's the butterfly kicks underwater that really propel you through the water rather than rising up. If you fly through the water, there's only a limit. I think it's 15 meters you're allowed underwater before you come up. But if you really power along and kind of stagger your exit out of the water to your swimming strokes, you can gain half a body length. And every single one of his starts, he's half a body length in front before they even rise out of the water. So, and he's just obviously powerful enough to maintain that. So he's been savage. Like I mentioned, Ledecky was also savage. Milak is probably going to go again. I mean, he's only been beaten this one time in the 100 meter butterfly. So he'll be back. Swimming was super fun. There's a lot of events. Like I mentioned last week, a lot of events. And they're doing the mixed relays as well. So literally having men and women swimming against each other. And obviously you can pick whichever way you want. So you can have literally man and women swimming against each other. And then obviously it's going to unwind itself because you're going to have the reverse later on. So a lot of those have been very interesting seeing. It's probably, having them both swim against each other, because obviously the wake, when you're swimming, it's unlike athletics, when you swim, obviously you leave like a big turbulent, like a Formula 1 car to be fair, like a big turbulent wake across the water, which obviously for a smaller female is going to be more difficult to battle through. So that's probably one thing that isn't quite even, but it's a trial event, and they're doing it in the athletics as well. But like I said, it's not quite the same, because you're not getting a 100 kilo man disturbing the water for someone who's however many kilos the ladies are. So that was another interesting kind of wrinkle to the games. I mean, they've got so many events. That's probably why you can kind of just see so many different strokes, and you see a lot of the people in the same events just doubling up, doing 15, 100 meters, butterfly, backstroke. It is very exciting to see so many different ones. So we'll come away from it. Australia have done pretty well. America would be happy with it. Great Britain would be delighted with third, to be fair, especially with some of the good golds they've got. Like I said, the 200 meter freestyle and some of the relays were very impressive ones to get, because 200 freestyle was just a little bit longer sprint, but to get that one, very impressive. Switching over to tennis, within the Olympics obviously, Djokovic, who was heading for the Golden Slam, he's heading for just every single tournament he entered, to be fair. The wheels came off, finally, against Alexander Zverev, one of those guys in the tier below. I mean, there's Djokovic by himself every single event. Then Nadal, if he shows up, if he's fit. Then you've got a lot of guys, like I mentioned before. Zverev is one of those guys who can take the step up and beat Djokovic every now and again, but not regularly. Djokovic went one set up, so it's first to 3, not 5, or best out of 3 rather than best out of 5. So going 1-0 up. Normally, I mean, Djokovic, normally he goes behind early. So normally if he's behind, he'll normally storm back and win in 5 sets if it's a 5-set game. But this time, went 1-0 up, went one set up, and you're thinking, absolute cruise from here. And then he lost. Did take it well. I mean, he's known as a bad loser. I mean, bad loser, good loser, but he's known as a bad loser. But that particular game, he did seem to take it quite well. Didn't take it so well in the bronze medal match against Carreno Busta of Spain. He threw his he smashed the net with his racket after losing a point, and then when he didn't make a point, he threw his racket into the stands. Obviously, there's no fans in there this time, so that was another warning for him. If you remember back to the 2019 US Open, he hit a ball at a line judge. He knew she was there. But I don't think, even watching it back, it wasn't bang. It was negligent, but he knew she was there. It wasn't like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were there. It's kind of like hitting it just that general direction. Hit her, he got disqualified he was winning that game easily. He got disqualified on the spot. So that's the only time he's lost in a Grand Slam recently. So now I guess he's human. Don't know how much he would have put into this one, and the whole travelling to Tokyo, isolation, just won Wimbledon. I mean, it's hard to do. There's a reason why only one person's ever done it, because you don't normally. I mean, winning a Grand Slam, winning all 4 in the same year, is next to impossible. It's so difficult. You have to really be dominant, and to have that fall on an Olympic year and win the Olympics as well is even more impossible. And it's proving why, even for the best top 2 best players of all time, Novak Djokovic. Golf, again, all these sports I've been covering each week. Golf, the Olympic gold, a lot of people, I guess it kind of polarizes opinion because it's not a major championship. But I think when you really get down to it, it's a bit like the Ryder Cup in the sense when you represent the nation, not just yourself, it does tend to take on a bit more significance. And you've got most of the best players. I mean, a lot of the guys didn't make it in. Like I said, Bryson DeChambeau and John Rahm tested positive and they were removed from the games. So it did end up being quite a good event, especially because Xander Schauffele, who was sort of he's kind of not an also-ran, not the word. He's a nearly man. He's been very good at the majors for a very long time. Top 5, top 3. He's always been close, but he's never been the guy to get out in the front and just dominate and win the event. He's won a few PGA Tour events, but he's always been known as the nearly guy in the majors. Never quite got it done in the big tournaments. This time he got out to a good lead. He had some challenges, so the Olympic record from Rory Sabatini, he's kind of a veteran of the tour. He shot 61, which is 10 under par, which is ridiculously low. Put the pressure on. Schauffele made a few mistakes down the stretch. Ended up closing out some big clutch putting. So he got the gold. Sabatini got the silver, and then there was a 7-man playoff. They had to go out in 2 groups. 7-man playoff for bronze. which is pretty exciting. It did make it quite interesting. Rory McIlroy was in that. Colin Morikawa was in that as well. That ended up going to CT Pan, who is another guy he's kind of flirted around. He's never been like a big contender, but these are one of those tournaments as you get to the playoff stages and anyone can win. Just stick your ball on the green, par 3, he got his ball closest, made a very good putt on the 4th playoff hole after they all get whittled down. McIlroy had a good chance. He missed a putt to at least extend that tournament, and Morikawa was close. So Morikawa was form-wise, he's really picking it up as we go into what's called the FedEx Cup playoffs, which is right at the end. It's like their big, not quite the majors, it's kind of the one below the majors. They have like these big 4 tournaments and everyone gets whittled down to, I'll go into it later, but he's in good form. Obviously John Rahm's in good form if he stops catching COVID, so hopefully he'll be okay. And I think, going forward, Morikawa is the guy at the minute. Morikawa and Rahm are the guys to look forward to after this. Basketball was fun. The Americans lost to Nigeria in the warm-ups before the games. Bearing in mind, it was literally as the NBA playoffs were finishing. So they were just like, the following week, they're like, okay, cool, send the team off. Obviously, most of the guys were not in the finals, and 3 of them who were in the finals flew out a week later. So America lost their first 2 warm-up games. They managed to win their 3rd one. Then in the actual Olympics, they lost their opening game to France, which had a lot of good NBA players on their team currently. Then they got into their running. They won their next 2 games. They're in the quarterfinals against Spain, who are the world champions from 2019. And obviously America are the Olympic champions from before. So that as far as a basketball game goes, that's going to be good. So America haven't got it all their own way. They're the overwhelming favourites for good reason, because they've got all the best NBA players. But because the European basketball scene, okay, it's not quite the same, but it's at least somewhat competitive. Like, it's very competitive. I mean, America have been beaten a few times. The Spanish, the Argentinian as well, Argentinian team, the French obviously, and Slovenia with Luka Doncic, who's Mr. Slovenia. He's like the superstar there, like the LeBron James of Slovenia, literally carrying that team to. I mean, they'll have some contests for sure. They might get deep into the tournament, but overall as a team, it should be America. But it's not a stunning upset if they lose. It's a surprise still, because they have got they've got Kevin Durant, all these boys, outstanding team, but they should get it done. But it won't. If you don't know too much about certainly the Olympic sports, and assuming the NBA is going to steamroll everyone 100-0, it's not quite that. It never has really been that, apart from a couple of Olympics. They've had a few shock defeats. So I think this one is more competitive because they're a bit rusty and they've just come off a hard NBA season, kind of almost 2 NBA seasons back to back, because they did the bubble, then had a short break, a whole NBA season. Everyone's getting injured. A lot of their best players missing. Obviously, LeBron's not there. So that's where we're at with the basketball. Athletics has been, again, another slowish start, because like with the swimming, they're doing a lot of the events in the morning, the important events in the morning, and then some of them in the evening. And in the morning, they're just slower and a lot less energetic. So they've caught a few people out, but some of the major, I mean, I could go into all of them, but some of the major talking points that I was certainly identifying beforehand, some of the world records that could or could not go. One of them has gone, the women's triple jump, which is a 26-year-old world record. Yulimar Rojas of Venezuela. She broke the Olympic record on her first jump, and it was quite a casual jump as well. So she's literally, look at the all-time list, it's literally only her. In the last 7 years, I think it was, there's no one within 60 centimetres of her, which in triple jump terms is absolutely enormous. So she managed to break the Olympic record on the first jump, and everyone was almost, if you could assume a world record's going to go, it was probably in this event, or maybe the 400 hurdles, men or women. But this one, she was looking like she was going to get it. She got close. Another one that was nowhere near, like so far ahead of everyone else. And then she broke the world record on the last jump. 26-year-old world record on the last jump. Everyone swamped her. So Olympic champion, finally. World record holder. It was a world record that one of the couple that I think, certainly I and other people were thinking that should, or at least could go, but probably should go as well. So that was very interesting. The men's 100 metres was another very interesting one, we had Italy's Lamont Jacobs. So he was born in America, because if you see him, he's a big sort of mixed race sort of guy. He's running for Italy. Born in America in Texas, I think it was. Moved to Italy when he was like 1, I think it was, and he's grown up there. And he's fully Italian, if you ever speak. He's not one of these who's transferred late. There's a lot of interesting late transfers that suddenly shown up for Australia or Sweden and stuff. That they were born somewhere else and they've lived their whole life somewhere else, and then they suddenly move and nationalise that country. But Jacobs is actually fully Italian, even though he doesn't look conventionally Italian. But and he was looking, I mean, just because of the form going into it, Trayvon Bromell was the fastest guy in the world this year, but he hadn't been that consistent going into it. The heats, he was looking bad, and he didn't even qualify for the final. So the fastest guy in the world did not qualify for the final. You've got Fred Curley, who is a 400-meter runner. So obviously that's the long sprint runner, and he's managed to come all the way down to 100 meters, and he ran 9.84, which is very fast for anyone, let alone a 400-meter runner. And the way he runs, he's got kind of an unconventional running style. It's kind of unconventional is the only way to put it. It's not kind of upright and long. It's kind of like flat, and it's a very, very strange sort of gait with the way he runs. But he ended up getting second. Is a PB for the top 3 runners. So Jacobs ran another PB. He only broke 10 seconds for the first time this year. Now he's got all the way down to 9.8, national record, PB, and Olympic champion, which nobody thought that would happen. Following on from that, Italy stay winning all summer. They won the Eurovision, they won the Euros, they've won the Olympic 100-meter title, and now they've got a joint Olympic high jump champion. So the guy, the favourite was Barshim of Qatar, who was the world champion, and the longest, I think he was longest high jumper of the year. This Italian guy, Tamburelli, flying through like perfect clearances. Him and Barshim were perfect clearances all the way up, and then they got to 2:37, which I think the Olympic record is 2:39, which in the high jump is just savage. They all got to 2:37 clearance. They all failed at 2:39, and the judge came over to them and asked Barshim. Well, he said it's obviously a tie. We're gonna have a jump off, and Barshim, the favourite, the world champion, said, "Can we have 2 golds?" And the guy, the official said, "Yeah, you can." And the Italian guy was beside himself in tears. He's jumping around, celebrating. Obviously, Barshim was extremely happy as well. But amazing sportsmanship, given that. I mean, I think when you look at it, it's such a hard. It's very physically demanding. So something like things like pole vault. I mean, all the field events, to be fair. But the more you go, it just takes every bit of energy. It really drains your energy in big portions. And jumping 2:39 is, especially at the end of an Olympic final. If you could guarantee a gold, even if it's a joint gold, I think a lot of people, I don't think it's not that controversial decision. It's a strange decision, for sure. Like, if you asked to share the gold medal, most people, especially if you're a favourite, I mean, the Italian fellow, he was not a favourite by any stretch. Barshim was definitely the favourite. And if you offered them both the gold medal, I mean, he's definitely going to take it. Barshim is up to him if he wanted to take it, but he offered it to him and he took it, and both of them are happy, which ends up being a good thing, to be fair. I mean, you know, if they can both get gold for the way they jumped and the injury problems they've both had leading up to it. If you said to them, yeah, take a gold medal, get out of there, delighted, to be fair. Finally, on the athletics, the women's 100 meters was looking like an all-time final. It was. I mean, all of them ran under 11 seconds in the end. It was looking like the world record, which is 10.49, was held by Florence Griffith Joyner in 1988. Super controversial because, well, the actual run itself, that particular one run, it was listed as 0 wind assistance. Now, you're allowed 2 meters per second wind. Now, I've seen documentaries on the actual event, and the wind was swirling. The actual wind reader, the actual manual wind reader, was blowing like crazy, but the wind registered 0.00. It's widely considered that the machine was actually faulty, as in the reader, the number that came up 00 was actually faulty because there was wind in the stadium. So apart from the performance enhancing drugs, which hasn't been proven to a failed drugs test, but it's widely speculated, assumed that was the case. And the wind was supposed to be, they estimated it was at something like 3 or 4 meters per second. So it's a super controversial world record. I mean, nobody's getting anywhere near it. Like, nobody. And if you think how modern sprinting, how modern athletes progress, and if you're telling me that 2021, a female athlete has not come along and broken the world record from 1988 with the nutrition, the diet, the technology, the information, the equipment, yeah, suspicious. But it is what it is. It's legal. It still stands. So going back to my original point, Elaine Thompson-Herah is now the double Olympic champion in 100 meters. She's the defending 200 meter Olympic champion as well. And she broke the Olympic record, which also held by Florence Griffith-Joyner, which is 10.62. So Elaine Thompson is now the double Olympic 100 meter champion, and the Olympic record, that's a hard 10.61 is so quick. It's gonna take, that's as fast as women have ever run, apart from that one run that Florence Griffith-Joyner did, which is 10.49, which is just silly. So the second fastest 100 meter run by a woman of all time. Jamaica had 1, 2, 3. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price was 34, who was the previous fastest in the world this year, 10.62, at 34 years old, and her mother, she got second. Sharika Jackson got third. Kind of side note, Sharika Jackson, whose real event, well, again, she's another one that's come down from 400, but her main event is 200 meters. She's not even made it out the heats in the 200 meter because she jogged. She started out of blocks in the heat, which you should just be able to cruise through the heats of the 200 meters, but she cruised too much and she eased up on the line and she got nudged out of the automatic qualifying spots by someone she absolutely should not be getting beat by. So one of the favourites for the 200 meter gold medal is out. So that is going to get extremely interesting. A lot of the other finals are kicking off today, so I'll cover them next week. Very exciting stuff. Formula 1. We're 11 races in now, and I thought it was being billed. Actually, to be honest, I'll tell a lie. At the beginning of the season, it was looking, well, before pre-season, it was looking. People were not bored, but it was definitely seven in a row for Mercedes. Hamilton is winning every single year. Mercedes were very, very dominant last year. They got out in front early and kind of cruised, and they had some big gaps in qualifying some of those last years. Verstappen won the last race of last year. Hamilton had COVID, and Red Bull were looking quite good. But this year was not looking like it's going to be an all-timer until pre-season testing, where Red Bull were outstanding and Mercedes were terrible. And people were thinking, maybe this could be interesting. Bahrain qualifying happened. Verstappen was on pole. Then they had an all-time great race. Hamilton managed to hold off Verstappen. And from then on, apart from maybe 2 or 3 races, every single race has been drama. Like, very few races have been... I mean, apart from Austria were... Yeah, both of those Austria races were pretty bad. Yeah, they're pretty bad. Spain was good. Portugal was a bit sus, but all the other ones have just been gripping. Probably had more gripping races, realistic in terms of racing for the lead this year than I think in the last 2 seasons combined. I feel like that must be the case. Some of these races are just so, like, the stuff happening in them is so entertaining. So this week was absolutely no different. So we came into this week. Red Bull had protested Hamilton's penalty for Britain. That got thrown out. It actually ended up making Red Bull look pretty bad because they reconstructed. They got Alex Albon, who was their driver from last year, to go out on the track and reconstruct the accident. They didn't crash, but the lines that Hamilton took and to prove that Hamilton was offline. It was pretty childish. It got thrown out pretty strongly. On they went. Verstappen had a bit of you couldn't call it a meltdown in the press conference before, because he was asked about again if Hamilton himself would come together, and he was like, I'm sick of the questions, we're swearing in there. He looked like he lost his rag a little bit, which is understandable because this is his first title challenge. This is the first time he's had any title challenge of any kind, and he's still very young. And Hamilton was the same, a little bit different, but similar at his age. and he's going up against the greatest of all time. So there's a lot of pressure on Verstappen, and at times it has shown. I mean, Verstappen's mistakes have probably been maybe just himself, and Mercedes have kind of let Hamilton down a few times, and they're going to let him down again in this particular race. At one point, qualifying was close throughout. Hamilton got himself on provisional pole, and then the last run, so they fuel themselves up, they get the new tyres on for one last run in the last couple of minutes. So Hamilton led them out. He just happened to be out, led himself, Verstappen and Perez were the last three out on the road. And it's up to Hamilton how fast he wants to go. He's not like a safety car. He can go around as slow or as fast as he wants. So he went around very, very slowly to obviously preserve his tyres so he can have a quick last run. And Verstappen and Perez did not overtake him. So he was slow. Gamesmanship kind of slow. And also to preserve his tyres, because there's a reason for it. But there's a limit, there's a minimum speed you have to go. And he obviously exceeded that fine. So he went around very slowly. Verstappen just about made the line to go for a last run. Perez missed the line completely. So he was starting fourth. Verstappen was third, and Mercedes on the front row. So it's looking like comfortable-ish. Bear in mind, Hamilton has won this race 8 times. Sunday comes, and it rains finally. It's been threatening rain for this whole season. They said it's going to rain in Austria. They said it's going to rain in Britain, France. No rain came. Rain came. Rain came. And they started on intermediate tyres. Down to turn 1, it's downhill, there's a lot of spray. Hamilton gets out well enough. Bottas spins his wheels off the start. He gets overtaken by Norris and also Perez. He locks up his tyres, skids his tyres, hits Norris. Norris clears out Verstappen. Bottas hits Perez. Stroll has also come down the inside. He's misjudged his thing. He's taken out Leclerc and was also hitting Daniel Ricciardo. So Esteban Ocon, Hamilton's managed to get out of trouble. He missed, when you watch the onboards, you watch it from behind. Bottas hitting Norris clearing out Verstappen was like that. He missed Hamilton's back wheel by that much. So he clears Verstappen out. Everyone's out in the on the runoff area. Ocon has managed to just slip down the inside. He's in second place now. Vettel has also done the same thing. He's followed Ocon. Off they go. So Verstappen's got serious damage. Perez has got damage. He's out. Leclerc's out. Norris is out. Ricciardo got damage. He continued for a bit. And then he ended up being out. And then Bottas is also out. So all the top guys are all out. And I'm thinking, you look at the lineup. You see Hamilton's first, undamaged. And then you've got Ocon and Vettel. You've got a real mishmash of teams and drivers in the middle. There's a red flag. So everyone has to come into the pit while they clear the track, and off they went again on their intermediate tyres. But in that intervening time, it stopped raining. So it rained for a bit. It rained for about half an hour, up until maybe end of lap 1. Then it stopped raining, and the sun came out, and the track dried super quick. So they're not allowed. There's a rule: you're not allowed to talk to the driver. The team can't radio the driver and say, "Come in the pit for tyres." So Hamilton was leading the guys round to get to the grid again to do the new start. And obviously he can't be told, come and pit for tyres, because it's illegal. So, and obviously being in the lead, he isn't going to be, if he pits, it's more of a risk if he's the first one to pit. Because if he pits, everyone else goes, okay, if Hamilton pits, we're going to stay out and just try and risk it to try and opposite Hamilton. That's kind of more on the teams behind. Hamilton had a bit more pressure on him. He did make a mistake. I mean, the team probably should have told him before they set off again, yeah, it's probably going to dry up in the next minute and 40 seconds. We'll come into the pits for slick tyres, for dry tyres. Didn't happen. Hamilton stayed out. Everybody else, everyone else left anyway, the other 14 drivers, all piled into the pits to pit for new tyres. Now the rules are, obviously the race is going to start with the guy on the actual track. So Hamilton was the only car. I think this is the first time it's ever happened in Formula 1 history. It's happened before, but there's been a couple of drivers in odd positions. But Hamilton was literally the only driver on the track, on the actual start position. The lights went on for him. Off he goes. And now everyone else who's in the pits does normal pit stops, and they have to line up on the edge of the pit exit and wait for Hamilton to go by. So Hamilton's going by on a dry track on intermediate tyres, which is going to be curtains. Everyone else has got dry tyres on. So that as he goes past, they can all set off. He had about maybe a 5-second lead. So by the end of the first lap, so he had to come in, pit for tyres. He comes out last, bottom of the 14 runners. And I mean, as far as mistakes go, following on from Baku, where Verstappen was winning the race comfortably and his tyre blew up. His tyre blew up because, allegedly anyway, some teams are running a car configuration which their tyres can deflate a bit, which means you've got more grip. So FIA say you have to have your tyres at X amount, certain tyre pressure at the start of the race, but we're not going to test it afterwards. So it was kind of their fault that the tyre blew up, but it's a bit random. And then Hamilton ends up going into the restart of that particular race in first, forgets to turn his brake bias thingy off. He locks his brakes, goes off, it comes up last. So he blew 25 points there, and an easy 25 points when Verstappen was out of the race. Now Verstappen's been cleaned out by Bottas, by Lewis's teammate this time, and Hamilton's team / Hamilton forget to change the tyres, or they just decide not to change the tyres, try and run a bit of a risk. So he's there looking at last place. Ocon and Vettel are opening up a good gap at the front. Ocon's never won a race before for the Alpine team, who were Renault. And Vettel was a 4-time world champion. He's won almost 60 Grand Prix. So it was looking at that point, Vettel was going to reel him in and take Ocon. Ocon held on from lap 5 all the way. Supremely good drive. Hamilton got through the pack a little bit. It's so hard to overtake. So hard. It's like Monaco. Monaco is next to impossible to overtake. You've got maybe one corner, maybe two, if you really send it. Hungary, you've got, I think, 3 corners if you really want to be brave, but there's some space you can overtake. But Verstappen was stuck behind Mick Schumacher for ages, and then he was stuck behind Ricciardo, and he was in a car that was just very slow. So Verstappen was kind of out of it. Hamilton managed to get up to 10th, pits for hard tyres, ends up running longer, manages to overtake Verstappen in the pits. They both come out almost like that, so he didn't have to overtake Verstappen on the actual track. Off he goes up to about 5th or 4th. Then he pits again. He did what he did a couple of years ago. Pits for medium tyres, gets the quicker ones on, chases people down. Now, Ocon's teammate, Fernando Alonso, double world champion, he was driver of the day, the fans vote. It's a bit strange, driver of the day, because it's just who the people like rather than who's the best driver. But Alonso did an amazing, he's a double world champion, he's a very, very good driver. Held up Hamilton for 10 laps. Hamilton would have won the race if A, Alonso let him by, obviously, which he probably wouldn't have done because his teammate was winning the race. Or B, if Ocon wasn't winning the race, Alonso probably wouldn't have been as hard to defend. But he was. Held up Hamilton for just long enough, where Ocon and Vettel just got out of range. So Hamilton ended up taking Alonso with 5 laps to go. Ends up taking Sainz because he's got fresher tyres. And then on the very last lap, he closes up to about 0.8 of a second behind Vettel, who was about second behind Ocon. So one more lap, he'd have taken Vettel and he'd have been right behind Ocon. So, I mean, all in all, again, it's another one of those where Verstappen throws it away. This one wasn't his fault. Verstappen throws away a win. Hamilton gets almost handed the win. He throws it away, and then another world-class recovery drive, just like in Imola when he was in the gravel and he got unlucky with the red flag. He got to change his car and fly through the field, come second. So it's another case. I mean, it's lucky, but it's also you've got to be there. You've got to be great enough to do it, and you've got to be there to capitalise. But it's very fortunate again. But again, the things kind of do offset a little bit because he did throw it away in Baku, and he did also throw it away. He would have won the race so comfortably. It'd have been a cruise if he pitted for tyres when he should have. It'd have been an absolute cruise. So, and if it didn't rain, obviously, it would have been calm. But it would have been a good race. I think he would have won anyway because the way the race was looking, overtaking was just not happening. So it would have been probably a close wheel-to-wheel battle with Verstappen. So that was looking interesting. Everyone was delighted for Ocon. He's one of the nice guys. I mean, Ocon and Vettel and Alonso as well. They're the nice. Well, certainly Ocon and Vettel anyway. Really likeable. Because Ocon's he was kind of a Mercedes junior driver, like the backup to Lewis Hamilton for a while. Didn't get too many good results. Got kind of not kicked out, but he didn't get a driver last year. And he still hung around, still did his thing, worked hard, came back, and now he's won. He's a French driver who's won in the French team for the first time. He's only 24 as well, so he could kick on from here. So he's had a pretty brilliant season so far. I guess now that he's got a win, and Alonso was delighted for him, which is nice to see. Vettel, everyone was happy to see at the time. Hamilton was visibly knackered. He looked in some kind of danger at one point on the podium. He's looking. I mean, there's been times where he's referenced he's been very tired before. Obviously, like I said, he got COVID December last year, and he said he's been suffering a little bit from that, maybe long COVID. Even an athlete as supremely fit as he is, he's obviously struggling on the podium. I thought he was going to collapse at one point at the podium. He was breathing heavily and hands on shoulder. He was struggling. So I think he went to get checked by the doctor and said he had some dizziness and some all that kind of thing. So tough race. Got 3 weeks off now. And in the evening time, a lot of people went to the stewards because a lot of race issues or infringements. Vettel got disqualified after the race because you need to fuel the car enough for the race, and then you need to have a sample left, 1 litre, which I don't know how much that would look in a fuel tank, but it's like a bare minimum amount of fuel so the FIA can test your fuel to make sure you're running the right kind of fuel and you've got the right kind of things going. So you need to give that sample. You need to always have that sample there in your fuel tank, and Vettel had only 300 millilitres. So he's well below, so that means they had the car underfueled, always running too high a fuel usage rate throughout the race. So he got disqualified just outright. So Hamilton gets promoted to second. So again, after being last again, just like I said in Imola, he's managed to come second in the race. He now leads the World Championship, incredibly, by 8 points. Mercedes lead the World Championship in the team by 12 now, because Perez has DNF'd in 2 consecutive races. The first one was more his fault. He spun off in the spin race, so he essentially started last. And this time he got taken out by Bottas completely accidentally. But Perez is having a tough time. Verstappen is having a very tough time, mentally and performance-wise. I mentioned before that this could be the difference. I mean, Hamilton and Mercedes are so good and they're so experienced. They've been doing it literally 7 in a row. Hamilton's been doing this since 2007. He's used to this. He's had all kinds of different title rivals. Verstappen's weakness is going to be his temperament and his experience. He's an extremely quick driver in an extremely quick car, and the team has always been very good, very innovative. But experience and ability to go through the gears when you're in a championship battle is going to be very, very telling. So far, we're not even halfway through the season. We're at the summer break now, so we've got 3 weeks off, and then it gets in some really cool races, Spa being one of them. And there's a lot of new tracks that come up on the calendar. So I think there's 12. I think we're at 11 races now. We've got 12 to go on paper. They're probably going to do a few double headers in America and maybe Brazil, they're saying, and maybe even Abu Dhabi, because they're thinking that some of these races won't happen. Like Japan, I think they might not happen, as cool as that would be. So at the halfway point, it's all to play for. They are still, I mean, the Sky Sports and Co are really building this rivalry up. Well, they're kind of stoking the flames. All they'll talk about for most of the broadcast was the crash the other week, which I guess is fair enough. But at some point, you need to move on, and they are kind of retreading old ground a little bit. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, and like everyone said before, that it was a sort of racing incident. It was seen as, and the FPL got thrown out. Now Mercedes are in front going into this 3-week break. Let's see. Every single race this year from now on, if you haven't been watching already, it's gonna be box office, especially when you get down to the real end game. I mean, certainly with Italy and Belgium coming up, you've got a new track in Holland, which is obviously Verstappen's home country. Can't wait. So yeah, that wraps up another week. I mean, only two headlines, Tokyo and the Hungary Grand Prix, but plenty to talk about, plenty to digest. Appreciate it once again, everyone's watching, and I will see you next week.